He's a father, a husband, and a professional fighter, but when it comes to his love of country, he's not pulling any punches. Joining me now here in Nashville is professional MMA fighter Michael Chandler. So it's great to have you, a fellow Nashvillian.
Yep, right here.
So I know that you're not shy about your beliefs and your values, and I have found that those in professional fighting tend to be more on the conservative side, and I think that's also evidenced by when Donald Trump shows up to any match of any sort. It seems like everybody just absolutely loves Donald Trump. They love this country. What makes professional fighting different than all the other woke mind virus sports?
You know, I think just by nature, a individual sport, you have to be a lot more autonomous. You have to be a lot more self-sufficient. You have to be a lot more what I do today, the work I put in today. When I go out there and compete, it's just me. There's nobody to blame it on. If I get my hand raised, it's because I went out there and did it and there was nobody to fall back on. Or if I go out there and lose, I can't point to my coaches. I can't point to anybody, you know, any trainers. I can't point to anything else aside from the fact that I lost and I have to take ownership from it. So I think maybe it stems from some of that. And yeah, I think, you know, they just had an event. The UFC just had an event a couple of weeks ago at this point down in Miami. And it was, number one of the greatest UFC events of all time per Dana White, our head honcho. And also, yeah, when Trump was there, Kid Rock was there. I actually saw Kid Rock on the golf course a couple days before. He said he was going down there. So, yeah, I mean, the place went bananas, and turns out Florida's a big Trump state.
It is a big Trump state. We're going to get into that in a little bit, discussing some political stuff. I'm going to pick your brain. But yeah, it seems like not only are the athletes in professional fighting, but the fans of professional fighting, they seem to be a little bit more on the conservative side. And that's so different from the BLM kneeling and the pride flags flying and about every other sport. Mm-hmm. And I wonder, though, is that because the fans of fighting are more conservative, or is that because the fans of other sports just shut the hell up because they don't want to be labeled a name and they don't feel comfortable being America-loving conservatives, independents, whatever, what have you, just not woke, not liberal, not communists?
Yeah, you know, I don't know. I haven't thought about it a ton, but it's also, I'm not the most outspoken, but I think people can tell by the way I live my life, what I stand for the most part, that I'm a conservative by nature, and I'm a conservative by the way I live my life and my beliefs. I haven't really thought about it that much, but I do love the fact that my fan base, most of the mixed martial arts fan base, and I see eye to eye, or are cut from a similar cloth, if you will. And yeah, you know, all I can do is just control what I can, which is going out there and putting on a show. And it turns out that good old red, white, and blue-blooded Americans love watching mixed martial arts, and I keep on doing it.
And people who immigrated to this country that are also in professional fighting also love America, which is nice to see. It really is. But going back to Donald Trump, Florida loves Trump. Florida also loves a man by the name of Ron DeSantis. Yep. So I have to get your opinion and your take on this, because this is a question I ask everybody that's more on the conservative side. Come 2024, who has your support? Donald Trump or Ron DeSantis? I mean, this is the ultimate fight. You're a fighter. This is going to be the battle royale of all fights, is going to be between those two. I believe that's going to be the most interesting race. Not Biden, not Kamala, those two. Yeah,
I mean, from a political standpoint, both of those guys are, in my opinion, two phenomenal candidates, like two guys that would be awesome to represent the Republican Party. I think most people would say what people didn't like about Donald Trump was he didn't, he kind of went off the cuff a little bit. He kind of just said what he wanted to. Ron DeSantis is a little bit more politically correct, which is going to lean a little bit more towards the middle of the road, people who dislike Trump a ton because of what he has said, or the people that he has offended, or even the fact that he wasn't afraid to say what he wanted to say really made a lot of people upset. And I think we spend too much time thinking about how what we say is going to impact other people. And I think that's why Donald Trump has ruffled some feathers. So I think when it comes to the support that Donald Trump has had and has continued to have, whether it be, hey, we wish he was still in office, those people who wished he was still in office won that 2020 election. He's got a huge amount of support, but when it comes to Ron DeSantis, he paints more of a broader brush, I would say. I'm not quite 100% sure where I stand right now. People know I've taken a picture with Donald Trump, lost a bunch of followers on that day.
You lost a bunch of followers.
Lost a bunch of followers that day.
Really surprised.
Really ticked off a lot of people. I mean, this is the thing too. I think if you get the opportunity to meet a president, a sitting president, a former president, any
a sleeping
former
president like Joe,
a sleeping president,
yeah.
Are you not going to take a picture with them? Most people. Right. I mean, maybe you wouldn't. I mean,
I would take a picture with Hillary.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying.
I mean, any of them.
So I mean, these are people that have shaped the fabric of our country, our very young country compared to a lot of established nations. So just the fact that people just said, "I can't believe you would do that," and you're this and you're that, and they bring my sons into it, and they do all this other stuff, and it's just so politically charged. It's unfortunate, but ultimately, I've liked Trump, what he has done. Yes, he made some people upset. I don't agree with every single thing that he has said, but I do love people who stand up for what is best for the United States and runs this country like we want to thrive. And we lead by example. We lead through strength. And the weak people are always going to be offended by that. So obviously I live my life by strength. I fight in a cage for a living. If I don't have strength physically and emotionally and spiritually, I'm not going to be successful, and I think it's carried me to where I am today. So I think I lean a little bit more towards the conservative side of things for that reason.
You brought up your family. I know you fight for a living. When people talk about your family or things that are close to home, does that offend you? Do you get offended by that? Or is your skin so thick that it doesn't penetrate at this point?
Well, so when they say stuff about me, it's my skin, and I can handle it. It's no big deal. I get, a lot of, as we all do, get a lot of negativity, a lot of hate. I've honestly just turned off the comments when it comes to me posting stuff about my family, because I want people to know who I'm fighting for. I want them to know why I wake up early in the morning, why I grind as hard as I do, why I make the decisions day after day for who I provide for. But ultimately, I don't want my sons or my wife to see that stuff said about them, even if it is by some troll somewhere in their mom's basement here, or some bot farm somewhere in some other country, which I'm convinced that half of the negative comments these days come from bot farms and all that kind of stuff anyway, just trying to spew up this kind of spew up division and all that kind of stuff as well. But my skin thick whenever it's coming towards me, but that's one way that gets my blood boiling, obviously talking about my family.
Right. And let's talk about your family a little bit. For those that don't know, you adopted 2 sons. And for me, I have friends that are also in professional sports that have adopted, and they say it's the best thing that's ever happened to them, that they love the kids like they're their own, and it's a really enriching experience. But for a lot of people looking in, the adoption, it's hard for people to understand how you could take that on and it could impact your life so positively and be so all-encompassing. Tell me about that and why you decided to do that, you and your wife.
Yeah, it's the most beautiful thing of human existence. I never thought I could be so fulfilled, so full of joy and peace and compassion, and just seeing my sons and watching them grow. And it really is true. I mean, when we talk about your biological children, yeah, of course they were going to be, little white boys that probably have brown eyes and they look like me, and that's kind of what I thought about for a very long time. Then I met my wife and then fell in love with her. And she had always wanted to adopt since she was 14 years old. God put it on her heart. She said, someday when I find a man, if I find a good man, I want to adopt. When we got together, she brought that to my attention, and I was like, okay, well, I hadn't really thought about it, but let me think about it. Let me pray about it. Let me seek wise counsel. Let me talk to people. Let me do a little bit of research. And there's a lot of information out there, but there's not a ton of, you don't really know until you actually get into the process, how long the process takes. Obviously, it costs money, and there's a bunch of hurdles, and there's a bunch of things, a bunch of boxes that you have to check. And then we went through the process, and we adopted our son Hap 6 years ago. And now we have our son Ace, who just turned 1 year old. And man, it is the most fulfilling thing I ever could have imagined in my entire life. I could win all the world titles, I can make all the money, I can have all the platform. But being a father is the greatest thing on the planet. And me, obviously, being in the public eye and fighting in a cage and being under the bright lights and all that kind of stuff, it's great. It pales into comparison to that. And also, I'm getting the ability and have the blessing to be able to paint this masterpiece that someday my kids will see when they're old enough. And I want them to hear who their dad was, how I operated, how I carried myself, what I did, not by what I tell them, because they already think I'm Superman, but I want them to hear it from other people. I want them to hear it from people that I've impacted or that I've crossed paths with. And it is so amazing, and I'm so grateful. And maybe we're done, maybe we're not, we'll see.
So now, having young children, this world has gone crazy. I mean,
Yep.
the United States in the last 5 years has been upside down. We literally live in the upside down. Does any of that concern you at all, with your kids going to school and everything that's happening with, the culture of society now, the things that they're learning, the division that's being sowed at such a young age, the books, the discussions? I mean, it feels like sending your kid to school, even if you have the best resources, it's like, it's a minefield sending them into that.
Yeah, no, it's definitely scary, and it's so, it just seems so wrong to the average person. It just, a lot of the stuff that we see, it just seems so wrong. It just seems so, like you said, upside down. It seems backwards. It defies logic. It defies the truth. I think so many people who are proponents of the stuff that you're saying, they talk about truth, or they talk about science, or they talk about feelings, or they talk about, and I think we've just become a society in which it doesn't matter what truth is. There is no absolute truth anymore. It's whatever I feel. It's whatever I want. It's whatever I want, and I want it now. And I think social media has done that. I think it's just, it is a scary time to think, like I said, my sons are 6 and 1. 10 years from now, my 16-year-old son is, he's going to want a cell phone, have a cell phone, and who knows where social media is going to be at by then. I mean, when we were kids, it was who was in maybe our school, and then when we went home, we had a landline, and now it's my sons can be connected to some other kid and some person his age, or maybe not his age, in Yugoslavia or anywhere across the entire world. So it is a little bit scary, but ultimately I do think evil will not prevail. I do think good will prevail. I think there needs to be a fight against it. I think evil prevails and succeeds when good men and women stand there and do nothing. So I do think every day I'm focused on my 4 walls around my family, creating a life for them, a lifestyle for them, a bulletproof mindset, a bulletproof heart and moral fabric that they're going to be able to discern right from wrong. The scary thing is, when does the wrong get thrust upon you without your choice? That's the scariest part about everything.
The time they spend in school.
Boy,
but there's a big controversy right now in sports in general, and that's something that should never be a controversy, but it's, should women have their own flipping category to be able to compete against other women? So this is something now, and it feels like a lot of the star athletes, whether it's in women's soccer, you got Brittany Griner in women's basketball, and others that are saying, let people just compete however they want, wherever they want. You've got people in fighting that are biological males cracking the skulls of actual women. I mean, when you look at this, it seems like it's just a couple here and there, a couple Leah Thomases, but this is becoming much more prevalent. You have sons, but if you had a daughter and she spent her whole life, as you did, preparing to compete at a professional level or even at a collegiate or high school level, and you watched a biological man come into her locker room or compete against her and take away opportunities, how would you feel about that?
No, like I said, I do have boys, luckily in this regard, but I have thought about that. And remind me of the girl's name who took second. Riley Gaines. And I see her going out and speaking out, and all she is doing is advocating for women. She's speaking on behalf of women. She's standing up for, and her platform is for women, and she's doing a great job of it. But to see the way that she is being kind of run through the mud and being attacked for just standing up for women, I thought that was a beautiful thing. I thought women needed more of a voice. But ultimately, I thought about her, and I know the work that my sons are going to do. My son's plays baseball right now and football. Hopefully he plays some sports, because I like sports. It's fun, but he can do whatever he wants. It could be music, it could be arts, it could be anything. But putting in the countless hours, the 10,000 hours that I had to put in just to try to win a state title in wrestling, and then just to try to win a national title, now try to be the #1 guy in the world, to have that taken from if I had a daughter, because it really is theft. It really is stealing, in my opinion. It's unfortunate. But I had this idea too, because we know what Title IX is, right? Title IX, you have to have the same amount of women as men, scholarships, all that kind of stuff. this is something I never actually talked about publicly. I thought, why doesn't Title IX come up with, why don't we have a Title IX for that topic, where it's like, okay, for every man who transitions to woman, another man can't transition to woman and compete unless there is one woman transitioning to a male sport, because you're not going to see that. You're not going to see a lot of women transitioning to men's sports.
That's why I think so many people are so frustrated
lopsided
and angry about it, because you don't see it go the other way, because there's not an advantage. So when you see men being able to have such an advantage, you don't see a lot of women that are just like, I feel like a man, I want to play football. You just don't see it, because they know that they would get absolutely destroyed. But the other way, it's like a retirement for failed male athletes. They can go play women's sports now. And I think that's where a lot of the frustration is it's not about, okay, you want to be trans, I don't quite frankly care. But it's when you're starting to take away opportunities and accolades from people who are just biologically inferior to no fault of their own. That's where people get angry.
Well, and I think that's where the misconception happens as well. Just as you said, like I said, I don't care if you want to be trans or if you are trans or any of that, or it's never been about that. People are living their lives, and there's people that are out there doing things that not everybody's going to agree with. But whenever you cross the line over to sports, or you cross the line over to other scenarios where,
like the bathroom, I don't know, the locker room, inappropriate places where we just don't need young men.
Yeah,
with women.
Once again, certain things just defy logic, and it's unfortunate, because you want people. We do live in a free country. We live in the greatest country ever assembled, the greatest nation ever assembled. We live in a free country, and you have free will to move about the country, and as long as you don't break laws, you can live your thriving, happy life and do it the way you want to do it. That's what we stand on. That's what we the people said we want to do. So people should be allowed to do what they want to do, conduct the life that they want to conduct, as long as it's not infringing upon other people's rights, as well as other people's, quite frankly, just scary things like you talk about a bathroom, in those different scenarios. So it's tough.
We'll move back into sports, because I know that you've got an ESPN show coming out, Ultimate Fighter 31, I believe it is. So you and Conor McGregor, they're teaming up, or I guess against each other, training fighters to go head-to-head. Tell us a little bit about that, and then also your relationship with Conor McGregor.
It was awesome. It was one of the hardest experiences of my life thus far. I thought, because the Ultimate Fighter, for anybody who doesn't know, it's me and Conor. We have our teams. I have 8 guys. He has 8 guys. My 8 guys fight his 8 guys to get to the finals to win a UFC contract. Ultimately, I thought I was going to go there. It's a reality show. It's on ESPN. Do some training. Wasn't going to care too much about the guys. I just wanted to beat Conor. And I got there, and immediately, as soon as I met my guys, I looked them all in the eyes. I made a promise to them that I was going to give my best. And after that promise was made, and then I started to just fall in love with these guys' stories and what they've overcome, where they came from. And they're just, I had such an awesome group of dudes. So I would wake up in the morning. First thing I would think about was, how am I going to train these guys? All day long we're training. We're doing the show. We're doing all kinds of stuff, extra interviews and extra shooting of stuff. And then another training session. Then I'd go out with my coaches at night to kind of debrief everything, take them out to dinner. And then up until the night, or the moment my head hit the pillow, I was thinking about, how do I get these guys in the best scenario? So ultimately, it was a very hard experience, because I cared so much. And I think hopefully it translates really well onto ESPN, how much I cared. I know my guys knew I cared. And I showed up for them, and Team Chandler did pretty darn good. We'll leave it at that. But my relationship with Conor is, it's actually very good. I think he and I, as good as it could be, knowing that you're going to step into the confines of competition and get into a hand-to-hand altercation with somebody, I have a ton of respect for him, how he fights, who he has fought. His resume speaks for itself. He is the biggest, not just the biggest MMA superstar and name on the planet, but also one of the biggest sports stars on the planet. He's mega, So it's good. There's a little tension here and there. You'll see that on the show. My relationship with him right now, I believe I'm going to beat him and finish him, knock him out. He believes the same that he's going to be able to do to me. So we're two competitors cut from the same cloth, and it's going to be a lot of fun.
So when is that going to happen? The matchup between the two of you?
So we don't have an actual date yet. So the show, it's definitely going to happen after the show. The show is on ESPN every Tuesday night starting May 30th. So May 30th to August 15th, 12 episodes on ESPN, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, something like that. And then, so we'll definitely be fighting after August, sometime between September and November, I would imagine. But it is definitely not set yet.
All right.
So
I think a lot of people are very excited about that.
It's going to be fun. It's going to be a good one. I mean, the fight itself, obviously, it's going to be a huge fight. If anybody who's watched me fight, foot on the gas the entire time, nonstop entertaining. Conor is a larger-than-life figure and goes out there to entertain and bludgeon guys, beat guys badly. So we both have the same goal, fierce competitors, and the show itself also starting May 30th is going to be fun.
And two very nice people as well, because Conor not too long ago was at Fox News with Hannity and made a huge donation.
Yep.
Tunnels to Towers, just does a lot. You both just do so much for your communities, and that's what I love about professional fighting, is that you guys can fight, you can beat the hell out of each other, but just really good people as a collective from my experience.
Yeah, and ultimately, I mean, it is kind of sounds counterintuitive, or we all are just kind of walking oxymorons, right? Because people call it modern day gladiators, or you call it the fiercest competitors, and we're not afraid to brave the unknown when it comes to going in there, not being afraid to move forward with reckless abandonment and face the unknown of getting knocked out, cuts, hurt, arms, limbs broken, and all that kind of stuff. But ultimately, you see a lot of guys, even the fiercest rivalries end in a handshake, a hug, because ultimately, you cannot train for and then compete against a guy inside of a mixed martial arts competition without having a ton of respect for them, especially after you have fought them. Because we know the sacrifices that go into it. We know the hard work that goes into it, the hours and hours and hours where your life just gets put on hold, and it's just that one blinders on, move forward toward that one fight. So we've all been very blessed with a platform like the UFC, and it's been a lot of fun thus far for 15 years for me. So
imagine if we could take that and a big fight, like, I don't know, an election, and then we could all still like each other at the end. Wouldn't that be nice?
That would be nice.
There's more of a chance that's going to happen in professional fighting than in politics. So
Definitely.
Good luck to us.
Definitely, and that's unfortunate, But I think ultimately, like I said, when it comes to that, I don't know, maybe I just have some silly blind faith that things will continue to get better. We will continue to come closer. I think traumatizing events or bad things happening each time there is one, eventually the heartstrings get pulled. Our just common sense and our human spirit can sometimes prevail, and it shows inklings of it here and there. So I think it'll keep on getting better. But I won't hold my breath.
All right. I hope so. And we're going to leave it on such a positive note. Thank you so much for being here. So happy that you're in Nashville with your beautiful family. And we look forward to Ultimate Fighter 31 coming at the end of May on ESPN.